Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. Today, James and I talking to you about the recent news we've had about the World Cup squads. Very exciting. Obviously, we're going to be talking using a lot of phrases like recency bias and um, up and comer, showing a lot of talent, shouldn't be in the squad. All those sorts of phrases are going to be used today because it's not really controversial, I guess, but there's some interesting points that we'd like to discuss, especially about the India squad and also about the England squad. Um, Most of you who watch this video are Indian, so we'll probably start with that one. Um, and James, looking at that Indian squad, what are your first thoughts?
Um, First thought is where on earth is Shashank Singh? Um,
He's been
uh,
robbed.
yeah, I know, I'm gutted. Um, I am obviously I've made some big calls.
Mm,
So one big call straight away, Shubman Gill isn't in the side. And that is quite a big call because I would say he's potentially a little bit faster than Rohit Sharma.
mhm.
Now, obviously, the issue is you've got to play Rohit Sharma who's your captain. And let's not kid ourselves and say this is like Owen Morgan of a few years ago, where he was basically only getting into the side. Sorry, I could just see that fly.
I just caught it.
Did you? Oh, Mr.
Yeah.
Miyagi. Right, where were we? I'm leaving all that in, by the way. Right. Yeah, Rohit Sharma. It's not like he's Owen Morgan of a few years ago. He's not just being carried by the rest of his team and he's only in there for his captaincy. He is a good player.
Mm.
Whether or not he's in, the top 11 batters for India at the moment, including opening batsmen, I don't know. I'm
Mm.
not as sure about that. Um,
Yeah.
Another massive call, and Shubman Gill is a reserve. So is Rinku Singh, and he's another massive call for me because his international record speaks for itself.
Yeah.
He has such an incredible finishing ability that he's kind of developed very recently. But I'd say he's still, I think in the
He's not had a
IPL, he's
great
still
IPL, really, has he?
160. He hasn't had an amazing IPL, but he hasn't been needed. They've had
No.
Sunil Narine and Phil Salt averaging goodness knows what a really high strike rate all season. So, but his
Yeah.
international um, record in T20Is, he's had 11 innings. He averages 89 at a strike rate of 176.
Yeah.
So to be dropping him um, is is a massive call for me, and I'm I don't know. He would have made it into my first 11, and
Yeah.
that's a big thing.
It's an interesting point, really, because when you look at Indian squads, India have been very dominant in most forms of cricket for the past few years. And when you can only fit 15 into a squad, it's quite hard. There are loads of people who, based on watching a lot of IPL cricket, the amount of players who have played for India recently, the amount of young talent they've got, to then bring them into a World Cup that carries a bit of weight. It's putting them into a high pressure environment. For me, World Cups are a bit of a different standard to IPL in that, um, not that it's a better standard, it's just different. It's just a different feel. And so it'd be interesting to see how certain players adapt to it. I get your points about Shashank Singh. I get your points about Rinku Singh. They've proven themselves to be very good quality under pressure, coming in at the end of an innings and finishing the job. The one thing I would say though is that you look at someone like Rohit Sharma. If you compare his recent form in IPL to this season, he's actually doing okay this season. However, they've put Hardik Pandya as vice captain, which I think is very interesting because not many other teams have picked a vice captain. So the fact they've named Hardik Pandya as vice captain is kind of giving me a bit of Mumbai vibes of kind of pushing Rohit Sharma out, replacing him with Hardik Pandya, but Rohit's the captain. And then if he doesn't do well for the first few games, we've got a backup just in case. That's kind of the way I see that.
That's a really
Uh,
interesting theory. That is interesting, and I mean, you know the amount that Hardik's been booed this season,
Mm, yeah,
and the fact that he hasn't really performed is it is surprising. I actually thought that they would play Shivam Dubé as like a almost a like for like replacement because he does bowl a bit of right arm medium as well. It's
yeah.
not as effective though, and I
Oh no.
absolutely will concede that he doesn't really balance the side. He's more of like a Daryl Mitchell where he's definitely in there for his batting, but he can offer a little bit with the ball. Whereas Hardik Pandya can, I mean, he's a very good bowler anyway. So you could stick him
Yeah.
at number 9 if he's not
What
batting very well.
I reckon the more controversial parts of the Indian team. I know we complained about Rohit Sharma potentially opening, but I think the most controversial aspect is Mohammad Siraj
Mm.
because do I think he's great for RCB? Yes. Is he top three pace bowler in India at this point in time for 2020 cricket? I'd probably argue not. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I also think that Arshdeep Singh's quite a surprise inclusion based on
Mm.
his recent form. I love him. That's I need to make sure that's known. I think it is quite well documented on this channel that he is easily one of my favorite cricketers. Um, but I personally wouldn't have picked either of them in this squad. I
Mm.
think, and I think a lot of people were expecting Natarajan to get a call up.
Yeah.
But I personally would have had Avesh Khan in there because
Yeah.
he's somebody for me that is a specialist death bowler. And when you've got, the quality of the other players with Jasprit Bumrah, who we know is a cheat code in cricket, and then you've got Axar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav, Jadeja, uh, Chahal, and Hardik Pandya. It is an incredibly strong bowling attack, and I just
Mm.
don't know if Arshdeep Singh, who's been going at like tens this season, and Mohammad Siraj, who doesn't seem to have any kind of change up. I don't know if those players are a little bit too predictable. That being said, I think it is more of a difference between the IPL and ICC just normal T20s now. This
Yeah.
impact players come in now, which does free up the players a lot. It frees up the batters so much. And, obviously bowlers can bowl like 2 bounces and over, things like that. I think it it will be completely, well, not completely different, but it will be very different. And I don't think we're going to see the same like strike rates that we were necessarily seeing in this IPL.
Um,
So maybe those players that have already got some experience on the international stage in just normal T20s, maybe they could do a lot better.
I mean, it does provide a bit of a balance issue potentially for this Indian squad. It because for me, out of the bowlers you've got, the three best spinners are Chahal, Kuldeep Yadav, and Ravi Jadeja. And for me, if I'm trying to build an 11, you want to have at least three seamers as well. So that's going to be Hardik Pandya plus two of Jasprit Bumrah and Arshdeep Singh, or Jasprit Bumrah plus one of Arshdeep Singh or Mohammad Siraj, isn't
Yeah.
it? But then you're going to have three spinners. Jadeja is going to play. For me, he comes in at 7. But then if you got Jadeja coming in at 7, if you don't pick Axar Patel coming in at 8, then you could say that India have quite a long tail,
Mm.
which then might mean we see players like Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli taking their time a bit more and not playing with the same freedom that we've seen them play in this World Cup.
Yeah,
And
I
that'll be the
think
thing, yeah, wouldn't it? To make
yeah,
sure that those players do play with freedom no matter the situation.
they definitely can't fall into that trap because that's how they've lost games in the past.
Mm,
Um, I would say, Kuldeep Yadav, he managed to pull off
yeah.
one of the greatest sort of finishing cameos that I've seen from a tail ender the other day, though, against Kolkata Knight Riders. I've never
Mm,
seen somebody manage to edge more balls to get a 35, which, yeah, is brilliant. But for me, I would actually not play Jadeja in my starting 11.
Wow.
I'm going to read out my starting 11, but I think
Okay.
Axar Patel offers more
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
in T20. So I've got Jaiswal and Oh yeah, I've just realized I can't open with Jaiswal, can I? Hmm. Sorry, I've stumbled at the first hurdle because I've just realized I dropped Rohit. Right, I'm
You
gonna
got
have to.
Jaisal and Kohli.
I was opening with Jaiswal and Kohli, but right,
Okay.
we've had to drop Sanju Samson, which I didn't want to have to do. But now I've got Jaiswal and Rohit opening with
Hmm.
Kohli at 3, Sky at 4, Rishabh Pant with the gloves at 5, Shivam Dubey 6, Hardik Pandya 7, Axar Patel at 8, Kuldeep Yadav 9, and then Boom Boom Bumrah at 10, and my boy Arshdeep at 11.
Mm.
Um, but I would happily exchange Kuldeep for Yuzvendra Chahal because
Yep.
I think he could. If I think of people that have been successful in the West Indies, and we are playing in America as well, but
Hmm.
people that have done well in the West Indies that I've seen, I've watched England, and I know that Adil Rashid has performed very well in the West Indies.
Mm.
He is a slower spinner that offers a little bit more flight and a little bit more turn than, say, I don't know, somebody that sort of darts it in like Rahan Ahmed or Rashid Khan. So I think that Yuzvendra Chahal could actually be really good. Kuldeep
Yeah.
Yadav, I think, also has that ability. So, Yuzvendra Chahal is another potential to come into that side. But what would an 11 look like for you? How would that differ?
Um, it doesn't differ that much. I mean, I've got Jaiswal and Sharma opening, Kohli at 3, Sky at 4, Pant at 5, Hardik at 6, Jadeja at 7. I just think you can't not pick Jadeja. I think just the way he's bowled in the IPL, he's just so good as a economical spinner who will take a few wickets as well. I've then got um, it's between Axar and Kuldeep Yadav in my number 8 position. It depends which way you go, and
Yeah.
then Bumrah, Siraj, Chahal. No, not Siraj. Bumrah, Arshdeep, Chahal. So it is a
Right.
long tail for
Yeah.
India. Um,
You don't have
and
Shivam
it'll be
Dubey either, do you?
no, I haven't picked Shivam Dube. I mean, I see Sanju Samson as the backup keeper to Rishabh Pant. And I see Shivam Dube as a backup middle order player if India don't have much impetus in their batting. Virat Kohli and Sharma are going too slowly, and they need to bring someone else in. Because what I'd like to see happen is Jaiswal opening with Kohli, and then um, Sky at 4, Shivam Dube. No, Sky at 3, Shivam Dube at 4, Rishabh Pant 5, Hardik at 6.
Yeah,
That
I
would be
think
my way around.
if if I
Sanju
if
Samson I've just got as the backup.
if I was playing against India, the side that I'd be more scared to see would have Jaiswal and Kohli opening, and
Mm,
then Kohli, if he hasn't got off to an absolute flyer, or even if he has,
yeah.
to prevent him slowing down, knowing that there is Shivam Dube coming in potentially at 3 as one of the
Hmm.
best spin bashers in the world at the moment and in form, that would be really good. Whereas Kohli at 3, that I've currently got in my 11 because I've got to have Rohit in there, it does worry me a little bit because we've seen how much he slows down after the power play. As soon as spin comes on, he's not very willing to risk his wicket, and that's a big concern when you've got other players such as Shivam Dube and Rishabh Pant that are willing to risk their wicket, play some slightly more aggressive shots, but really add some impetus um,
Yeah.
into that batting lineup. So really interesting squad. I don't think I'd have made a whole lot of changes, but like I say, I think Avesh Khan and Rinku Singh, who are currently on the reserves list, they would be in there for me.
What
Um,
about Gaikwad? He
I,
would be one that I was thinking, but
yeah,
it's for me, he and Jaiswal are quite similar players. I guess Jaiswal has a bit more of that X factor about him, doesn't he, at this stage? Um,
yeah. I
but
think Jaiswal has an ability to go harder at the top pretty much every time,
mhm,
and he's just a 3 format player. I think he's
yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
he's very good. Yeah.
Gaikwad, I mean, he Gaikwad could also be a three format player, and if
Mm.
he was English, he would definitely start.
Yeah,
But at least in test matches and stuff. But
yeah,
I don't think that they need Gaikwad because he is a little bit more of that anchor role as well. He's just less experienced, so I don't know why you'd open with him instead of Virat Kohli.
yeah,
So
yeah.
really interesting. Um, shall we move on to talk about England, who have
Yes.
also released their provisional squad? I mean, I could happily talk for hours about all the teams, but we'll limit it today, and we'll just talk about India and England. Let us know in the comments if you want us to talk about more countries. If so, let us know which countries you want to talk about. But England have released their squad. It's a pretty normal looking squad, I'd say. It's
Mm.
relatively run of the mill. A lot of the old boys are still in there, and the only like notable things I'd say are within the bowling attack. So no Chris Wokes. Chris Jordan does come in. No Adil Rashid. Tom Hartley does come in.
There is
And
Abdul Rashid. You mean Rehan Ahmed?
yeah, that's absolutely who I meant. No
Yeah.
Rahan Ahmed. Tom Hartley does come in. No Gus Atkinson, who was, pulled out of the IPL in order to rest and
Mhm.
be fit. They haven't even bothered picking him. And they've picked like Reece Topley, Mark Wood, Jofra Archer, who are all quite injury prone. So
Mm.
what are your thoughts on? Should we split it? Let's talk about batters, all rounders, and then bowlers.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
what are your thoughts on the bowlers? Because they're probably the most notable aspects of this squad.
yeah. Well, I think commiserations must go to Gus Atkinson. He's missed out on getting a lot of money in the IPL.
Yeah, he's been
Prepare for a
screwed
World
over a
Cup
bit,
that he's
hasn't
not going to be in. Like, it's just, yeah. I'd be absolutely gutted if I was him. I'd be breaking the door down to get into the county championship team and take 10 wickets in my next match. That's what I'd be doing because, yeah, he's been robbed a bit there. Especially given you look at Reece Topley, he kind of had a bit of an iffy time in the IPL in the last few games. But like you said, he is injury prone. He walks onto a pitch and injures himself, doesn't he? So, yeah. And Jofra Archer, not 100% sure if he is actually going to be able to play. Be interesting to see how he goes in the Pakistan tour. Well, when Pakistan come here, and yeah, see if he's fit. I think if he doesn't get picked, then Gus Atkinson straight in.
he?
That's
Yeah.
the way I see it. But yeah, the bowling wise, I mean the biggest surprise really is Chris Jordan, isn't it? Um,
Mm.
we're thinking, is he past it now? I guess Chris Jordan has the ability to go for lots of runs at the end, but I mean, most of England's bowlers go for runs at the end, and Chris Jordan has proven into himself to be quite handy with the bat. Put him in at 7 or 8, he can hit you quite a few runs. So and also 9. If he bats at 9, then we bat quite deep there. So yeah, I'm not too bothered about the bowling as much. I'm not as excited about the bowling. I don't think there's any fast bowler in English cricket other than Jofra Archer if he's fit, who can be like that Jasprit Bumrah, who can just take the game away from you, away from the opposition. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't think we have that. I don't know if Adil Rashid is still that. Um, I don't know what your thoughts are. If you think Mark Wood is potentially that, I'm not sure.
I think on their day, and that's probably the summary of most of England's players. Not so much the batters. I think at least that top order, and we'll go on to that, look pretty solid. But I'd say bowling wise, and I'll include the all rounders into this as well. But if I think about Topley, Wood, Archer, Rashid, Hartley less so because I haven't really seen. He's never played a T20 for England. Um,
No.
Jordan kind of, Sam Curran definitely, and Liam Livingston as well, on their day can be incredible for England with the ball. They can just absolutely tear through a side, and
Mm,
they can win games. And I've seen them all win games. However, when they're not on the game, Liam Livingston goes for like 16 runs regularly and over. Sam Curran can get absolutely smacked around. Chris Jordan, I've seen go at tens and over pretty much consistently for the last 6 years. Adil Rashid can get carted around. Jofra Archer can get injured. Mark Wood can go at 15s and get injured. Reece Topley. I almost don't know what to say about him because I think he's performed well in normal T20s, but this impact player, I think really messed him up because
Yeah.
players have been going so hard against opening bowlers,
Yeah.
and that's usually where he shines at the top of the
Yeah.
order, so at the top of the bowling attack. So I think I'm not as worried about Reece Topley. I think he is still really good. But let's
Mm.
talk about batting.
Yeah.
Um, we've got pretty informed batsmen. What do you see being the sort of top six?
I've got Butler and Salt opening. Will Jacks at 3, Johnny Bairstow at 4, Harry Brook at 5, and then Liam Livingstone at 6. What I don't want to see from this England squad is relying on players like Liam Livingstone, Moeen Ali, and Sam Curran to win games. I don't want to see Moeen Ali in the top 7. Um, I just don't see him as reliable. Liam Livingstone as well. Like when he's in awesome form with the bat, he walks straight into that side as a number 5 batsman and whatever. But he needs to. We haven't seen Liam Livingstone, the true finisher, for a long time, especially for England, and that worries me a little bit. He's like my question mark. But that top 5 that I've just said, that's where I'm excited by this England squad. Like you think about players who I've just said, Joss Butler, Phil Salt. Think about how amazing he's been in this IPL. Will Jacks, that century the other day was ridiculous. Johnny Bairstow, the century to win Punjab Kings that record, like that was unreal. And Harry Brook for me is England's best batsman, behind probably Joe Root. But in 2020 form, in all formats, Harry Brook probably takes that. So yeah, I'm excited by that top 5. I'm just worried about our finishers. Can Liam Livingstone, Sam Curran, and Moeen Ali do that job? Or are we going to rely too much on the top 5? And if they lose early wickets, that's kind of screwed us over. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I also think that England do have that possibility of using Curran as a bit of a floater potentially to combat matchups.
Hmm.
Because there aren't many left-handers in that top 6 that you mentioned. Well, there aren't any in that top 6 you mentioned.
No.
There's obviously Ben Duckett on the bench. Um, I don't know what you think about Ben Duckett as a replacement, but I actually am really glad to see him in that side because at least in terms of records, he has one of the best 3 format records in England. So to see him actually get into that side,
Mm.
at least as a reserve, is really good to see from my point of view. And I think if Bairstow doesn't do that well in the first few games, Duckett does come in for me. And then inevitably, the next game you bring Bairstow back in after dropping him and he'll score a ton. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a strong side. I completely agree with your views on Livingston, Moeen, and Curran though, because they are not consistent players. Curran can go at a steady 130 if you bat him in the top 5. Livingston can just have a complete brain fade. You're absolutely right. Since he got
He's
that
20 and
century,
yeah.
since he got that century in what was it, 2021
Mm.
against Pakistan, he has done very little in an England shirt,
Yeah.
and he needs to kick into gear. And Moeen
Yeah.
Ali is probably the least reliable player that has ever played for England. I think any time that you need him to do well, he won't. Every time you want him to do well, it's like a 50-50. he,
Mm.
he he will do it if he feels like it, and he'll look like the best player that's ever played. But yeah, the rest of the time he's completely unreliable. So I'm not like I'm not looking at that England side and thinking there's the absolute world beaters. but I'm also thinking they could win. And I think
Yeah,
the same goes for India. I'm not looking at that side thinking there's the absolute strongest 11 players in Indian cricket or English cricket, but
mm,
I'm thinking there's a side that could win a World Cup if things go their way.
yeah. I mean, if you look at the IPL, some of the teams can end up with insane bowling combinations. So Mumbai Indians this year, they've only really got Jasprit Bumrah. Whereas if you think the Gujarat Titans team could have Rashid Khan, Noor Ahmed, and then Mohammad Shami as a fast bowler. Like that's ridiculously good. But that you've got people from different countries kind of piling together. Whereas in the World Cup, if your bowling's not quite there, if you don't have two or three really good bowlers, then I think you're going to be struggling and you're going to be more hoping to finish because that's your strong point. And I see that England batting lineup, and I'm like, if you see a team scored 220 against you, then you'd back England's top five to have a go and potentially win a game. Um, I can see that happening. Whereas if you're looking at that England team to set a total, they might be able to set a big total, but do they have the bowlers to defend? And that's going to be the key. Which teams defend the totals best? I remember when England won back in 2010 in the 2020 World Cup, they had the bowlers to defend. When England won 2021, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Or 2022? Their bowlers were on in form and defended,
Yeah.
and that was the key. So that's what we need to see from this England team. That's what the Indian players want to see from their team. That's what every team wants to see from their team is can their bowlers defend against this batting craze that is happening in 2020 cricket. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. Who do you think has the best provisional squad, I guess, for the 2020 World Cup? And you can talk about any team you like. Who would you have picked for India? Who would you have picked for England? Be interesting to know your thoughts. What do you think of the teams? Thanks so much for your support. We've really enjoyed making videos over the last few months about the IPL. Even though we haven't been getting lots of views, we're still trying to bring them to you. We still appreciate all the support that some of you are showing, the comments you leave in, and all that. So keep it going because we do really appreciate it. You can also become a member. There is a join button and you get extra perks. And also, if you want to follow us on social media, we're quite active on there. There's a link to the link tree in the description as well. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.